Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Henry Schein Dental Academy webinar series. My name is Adam, and I'll be your moderator. Today, we're joined by Dr. Roy Shelburne, who will discuss the cost of filing dental insurance claims. If you have questions during the webinar, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section of your control panel, and we'll answer them live at the end. Henry Schein is not offering CE credit for viewing or attending this presentation, live or on demand. And this webinar is sponsored by Henry Schein's Dental Business Institute, as well as eAssist Dental Solutions. Welcome back, Dr. Shelburne.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks for having me back. Great to be here. I was sharing with Adam before we started, this is my third Zoom meeting of the day. And of late, the old Aretha Franklin song plays in the back of my head, who's Zooming who? So I guess this is one of those instances where I'm getting Zoomed again. Thank you for being a part tonight. Glad you're here. We're going to spend some time together. Hopefully we're going to have a good time through the process. It can be a little bit daunting when you're dealing with insurance companies, trying to figure out, is it worthwhile? Is it not worthwhile? Ultimately, are anybody picking your pockets in your practice? So we're going to work through that a little bit tonight. Going to share some information. There'll be a Q&A at the end. Please feel free to put your questions in either the chat or the question box, and Adam's going to be monitoring those, and we'll try to deal with those in the end. Going to try to close things down at about 45 minutes in, so you'll have 15 minutes to have information answered. And if you have questions afterward, please feel free. I'll be happy to answer those or forward those to Henry Schein Dental Solutions. eAssist, I don't know if you know about them, but they've invented optimization of the revenue cycle. They manage the front desk services for dentists. They can do just about everything from soup to nuts. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. They've been in business for about 10 years, and they've been putting more money back in the pockets of the nation's dedicated dentists. They reduce stress for their teams and create more reliable cash flow. And who would not want more reliable cash flow? The team of dental billing experts at eAssist, they service 2,100 dental offices and DSOs to this date, and have collected more than $7.03 billion from the insurance companies. That's a huge number. They have worked through the process and are pretty proficient at what they do. eAssist has received many awards, the Inc. 500, the Inc. 5000, the CDA endorsement, the Innovator 360 of Entrepreneurs, Financial Times demarcation, been noted as a great place to work, certified in 2020, a member of the Fast 50, the Fortune 100, and are growing. And as I shared before, they've collected $7.3 billion on behalf of dentists. So to me, that's a pretty impressive number in today's world. So what does eAssist do? What can they provide for you? They do, their basic bread and butter is dental billing and insurance aging. They will help you submit your claims, get you paid. They also, you may not know, provide credentialing services. So if you're in one of those practices who have a new associate come in, or if you're in a group practice where there are many associates in a practice coming and going, they can help you through that process. If you've tried to do that on your own, can it be done? It absolutely can, but it will drive you crazy in a lot of instances. They can do it in a way that it streamlines the process. They keep the practitioner's information on file, so it makes it easier to do to multiple PPOs, so that it streamlines that process. They actually do insurance verification and eligibility. If you have somebody on your team, or if you're on the team and you're the individual who has to verify insurance benefits, is that not a fun thing to do? How much time do you have to spend on the phone? Fax back is efficient, but does it ever give you all the information you need? No. Isn't it great to be able to hold that line for 45 minutes, an hour per patient? Wouldn't you like to get that time of your life back? And this is a way to be able to do that. You can farm that out to eAssist. They can help you with that. They can actually do accounting and bookkeeping. So if you want to offload that to a group, eAssist does that. They actually do the patient billing and statement, as well as follow-up calls, so that your team doesn't have to follow up with those collection calls. They don't have to have that interaction with patients. They can actually handle that portion as well. And drum roll, please, they have individuals, they have a service who will put bodies in your practice. They're only paid if they are able to have that individual appoint in your practice and show up. So how would you like to defer that to somebody else to be able to fill those empty chairs? And like I said, they're only paid if they're successful. So that's front desk. They can give that individual in the business area so much time back so they can spend time with patients, developing that rapport, having that patient feel connected to that practice, which is so important today that we do this. And especially in a world where we're talking tonight about whether to be in network or out of network, if that patient feels like they're a commodity, if they don't have that relationship with your practice and you decide to go out of network, they'll be gone. They're going to look for the doctor who is in network. So it's very difficult to keep those patients in your practice. But if you've developed a rapport with that patient, they have a connection with you. And if you have more time to be able to develop that and you decide to go out of network, that reduces the chance of that patient moving on to that new practice that is in network. So all these can go together to be able to help build your practice and make things work a little bit more easily for you. Here's me. I guess I'm going to have to toot my own horn. I'm a dental consultant. I'm a speaker, writer, consultant, graduated from dental school in 1981. When I graduated from school in 1981, there was no such thing as a PPO. There were insurance companies or patients without insurance companies, so PPOs didn't exist. So that was, to some degree, the renaissance of dentistry. Graduated in 1981 from the Virginia Commonwealth University. It was MCV, the Medical College of Virginia, then part of VCU, and now it's all together. I'm an American Dental Association recognized subject matter expert in billing and coding. I'm a president of the Academy of Dental Management Consultants. I'm a recipient of the Spirit of SCN Award, and I focus on documentation, billing, and coding to maximize legitimate reimbursement. I want you to get every penny that you're entitled to, no more, no less. I want to reduce stress, reduce risk. I want to keep you out of jail. Ultimately, that's our goal, to make sure that you get paid everything that you're entitled to, no more, no less, and that you do it in a way that it reduces the chance of any repercussions afterward. So what are we going to talk about today? The good, the bad, the ugly of PPO network participation. So we'll try to look at the good and the bad, why accepting insurance company does not necessarily equal lost income. We'll talk about how that might work one way or the other, why it might actually increase your income, it might decrease your income, and what steps you can take that won't sacrifice patient care, employee retention, or cash flow. We hope to make it so that you understand a little bit better the ins and outs of submissions, the revenue cycle, and what you need to do in your practice to make sure that you maximize the joy in your practice. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to have a day when you walk out of the practice, you feel like you've accomplished something positive. And the more you're able to develop systems and to understand the inner and outer workings of your practice, the more likely you're going to be able to do that. When everybody's on the same page, and congratulations on attending webinars, this one or another one, it's going to help you understand more about dentistry and help you to become better and more effective at what you do and feeling more accomplished at the end of the day. Ultimately, how to prevent the planned pickpockets from robbing your bottom line. So we're going to work through these tonight, hopefully give you some information that you feel is valuable and to be able to implement in your practice. So we're going to start with a poll. Adam, if you could help us with this. We want to know, how many dental insurance plans do you participate with at this time? You know, this is kind of all over the board. I know what the national average is, but it's always interesting to see in these webinars what the audience consists of. How many of you are actually in network? How many of you are out of network? And I know if you're in network or out of network, you're thinking, should I get in more or should I get out of some of them? So we'll be talking about a little bit of that tonight. So we'll find out how many of you are in, how many of you are out, so we'll have a better idea of how that's working. Adam, do we have a good number who have responded?
We do. They keep coming in, but it's looking like the majority has said less than 5. Runner up 10 to 15.
All right. So the audience tonight is not very deeply involved in PPO participation. Actually, the last the last information I got from Delta Dental, and Delta Dental is the 900-pound gorilla in the dental world. They have a chokehold on PPO participation, and that is generally because if a dentist is not in network with Delta Dental, that check will go to the patient. And it makes it a little bit difficult for the patient sometimes to come up with a full amount. So it pressures dentists to be in network. And actually, across the US, about 57% of the dentists who are practicing dentistry actively are in network with Delta Dental. So this group is very much lower than a lot of the groups that I speak to. So good for you or bad for you. We'll talk a little bit better or more tonight about whether that might be good or whether that might be a bad thing. Approximately 2/3 of Americans are enrolled in private insurance. 76% of those are in PPO plans, and that number has been ever increasing. So back in the last graph I saw started out in 2002, and in 2002, only about 12% of the plans that were sold in 2002 were PPOs. The last one I saw went to 2016, and of the group that was in that percentage, 76 of the insurance plans that patients have, the 2/3 of the Americans who have insurance, 76% were PPOs, and that number's climbing. So if you're feeling more pressure from patients to be in network, that's probably the reason, because if a patient comes into your practice with an insurance card, the chances are about 76% that they are going to have a PPO card. So when patients call, they're 76% of those with insurance are going to have that PPO insurance card, and they were going to ask that question. And verbal skills are very important. And Adam, I think I shared with the people during the last webinar, I have ADHD, so I chase a rabbit every once in a while. So verbal skills, I'm going to go here now. Verbal skills are very important. When a patient asks, do you take insurance? They don't know what take insurance means or if you're in network. So to answer that question, if you are not in network, and the majority of the people who are attending today from the poll that we saw are not in network, but I would imagine most of them help the patients with the processing of the insurance. So to answer that question for those individuals who are not in network, but do process for the patients, when they ask that question, I would defer that just a little bit. I would first ask, well, so we can determine whether this might be a good fit, can you give me a little bit more information about yourself, and try to develop that rapport with the patient so they understand that you want to know more about them. They feel connected that way, and answer the question appropriately. What plan do you have? And I would say, well, we have many patients in our practice that do have that plan, and Mary in our practice does everything she possibly can to make sure that you get your maximum benefit from your insurance plan. She is an expert in that. She's going to get every penny that you are entitled to, and we accept that. All you're going to need to pay us is the difference between what your insurance pays and the remaining amount. But to be honest with you, our doctor has chosen not to be directly in network with your plan, and this is the reason why. The plan you have has so many limitations and restrictions on that plan that it binds our hands. We cannot give you the care that we feel that you need and deserve because of the restrictions on that plan. And because our dentist and our team feels very important or very strongly about the fact that you need to be able to decide what's best for you, not the insurance company. So that's why we have chosen not to be directly in network. We will accept assignment of benefits, and all you'll need to do is pay us the difference, but we are not in network. We'd be happy to work with you. That's a different conversation than when the patient calls, asks, do you take my insurance? And as I said, 76% of them are going to have PPOs. And if the answer is directly a short answer, no, we don't take it, the phone is going to be hung up and that patient will never become a patient of yours. So there again, think about your verbal skills in a way that it's going to be benefit to the patient. The doctor is chosen because they don't want to be limited to what they can offer the patient. So verbal skills are very important in that. Does it mean that you have to participate with dental insurance because 76% of the patients with insurance have it? Absolutely does not. You can be out of network and still accept assignment of benefit, or you can be out of network and not process any claims at all. That's your choice. This is America. You can practice any way you care to. It doesn't mean that you have to, but we'll talk a little bit about what you need to think about when you're making that decision, whether you go in network, whether you decide to stay out of network, or what you determine your relationship will be with the insurance plan, and taking in consideration what you want your relationship to be with your patient. And that should be number one, always be number one. So let's talk about the good in participation. Ultimately, will it open up your practice to more new patients? Yes, and especially in situations where you have an employer who is opening a new business. So there's a whole new group of patients who will be covered under that plan. And if it's a PPO plan, that could drive a whole group of new patients into your practice. So that could increase your patient base. With patients with insurance, they can feel like it's more affordable. I don't have to pay it all out of pocket. My insurance is paying this. It's going to limit the amount that the doctor can charge me, so they're not going to overcharge me. So patients look at that and go, okay, this is in my benefit. I can afford it. So yes, let's go ahead and use it. Let's go to the dentist and let's utilize our benefits. I'm going to chase a rabbit again here. Of the patients with dental insurance in the United States, what percentage of them actually use their annual maximum? Annual maximum in a plan can be $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. Why has it changed never? Well, the question I ask has a great bearing on the fact. How many patients who have insurance actually use the maximum per year? And this was a statistics from the NADP, the National Association of Dental Plans. Only 7% of patients with dental insurance actually use their maximum. So the insurance companies point at that and go, only 7% of our insured patients use our maximum. So why do we need to increase that? So that's the reason. So, but finally, patients may be more likely to accept treatment and return for care. So if they've got this benefit, and if they don't use it, they're going to lose it. So that might entice patients to come into the dental practice because they have this benefit, their employers provided them. And if they don't use it, then it could go wasted. So people don't like to waste very much. So that might drive patients to your practice. The bad, you're subject to the PPO restrictions and limitations. For example, the frequency limitations. They will only pay for the least expensive alternative benefit. So you need to be aware of those limitations and restrictions when you sign on to that plan and be willing to work and accept them. And ultimately, are you accepting a lower reimbursement? You actually are. That's bad. So it reduces the amount that you can actually charge the patient. And sometimes it doesn't bring the ideal patient into your practice. The ones who are in network, they may be looking for the least expensive dentist. They may be only looking at what the insurance is going to pay for them. Have you ever had a patient come in your practice with dental insurance and say, I only want what the insurance is going to pay for. I don't want anything else. It changes the mindset a little bit, and it makes it a little bit harder for us to be able to encourage them to accept the treatment that they actually need and deserve. The plan, if it's been around for a while, say you have an employer who's been in the area for 20 years, and you're the new kid on the block, you open your practice and you decide to go in network, those patients who have been employees of that business have had their dental insurance for 20 years. They probably have a relationship with dentists in the area, and it's probably been a long-standing relationship, unless the patient, for whatever, left the practice. And we all know that there are some patients that you cannot satisfy, and you may only going to be getting the patients into your practice, the ones who are shopping, and they're looking for the next dentist that they can harass and give a hard time to. Let's face it, there are some people that you just can't please, and those have a tendency to jump around. And the people who are decent, great patients, good people, and have developed a relationship with the dentist, they're going to stay there. So that pull for that long-standing plan may be one that's those people that are a little bit more difficult to deal with. And the ugly, the fees are never going to get any higher. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. So it's important for you to push the envelope as much as possible to try to maximize that fee schedule, and there are ways to do that. So we'll talk a little bit about that, how you make that work a little bit further in on the webinar. When patients are in a PPO, they tend to look at it as dentistry as a commodity. Dentist A is the same as dentist B, the same as dentist C. So why do I want to go to dentist C that is not in my network when dentist A is? You're all the same. You all do the same things. So I'm going to get a filling here. I'm going to get a filling in dentist B. I'm going to get a filling with dentist C. And my plan was with this one, so I'm going to go with this one. You look like a commodity, not a healthcare provider. And if you're deep into PPOs, in order to be profitable in many instances, you have to be what's called lean and mean. You have to run and gun. You can't spend a lot of time building relationships because you have to see so many patients to generate the same amount of income because you're reimbursed at such a less rate. So it will sometimes make that relationship connection very much more difficult. Patients, as a result, if you are having to do that very lean and mean practice, patients can feel like they're on the assembly line and that they're not cared about, they're not cared for, and that tends to increase the risk because they haven't had enough time to develop that relationship and like you. Patients who like you don't sue you, they pay your bills, and they refer patients to you. Patients that don't like you will badmouth you on social media, they'll give you bad reviews, and they'll tell everybody they know how horrible your practice is. So if you don't have that relationship and patients are on assembly line, then that could happen. And it also reduces the limitations, or it increases the limitations and restrictions. We talked a little bit about that before. If you don't know about them, if you're not familiar with them, then it can turn a good situation into one that you're not paid anything for if you don't understand the limitations and restrictions. So you have to be careful about understanding what those are and how to deal with those moving forward. The most important factor in determining if you should be in a PPO network is to know your community and your patient base. So if you are in a community where it's low income, there's not a lot of give in that income, you're going to be harder pressed to have a practice that is fee for service only. You need to know the patient base that you have, the number of patients you have that are now in PPOs, the number of patients that are fee for service, and ultimately the income level of those individuals in your area. Can you have a boutique practice in the middle of a blue collar area? It's possible. Like I said, it's the United States. You can do anything you want to, have any practice you want to, but you have to be very careful about positioning yourself. The perception of your practice needs to be at a certain level, and you have to be on your toes about making sure that you do things a specific way to draw those ideal patients. If that patient doesn't exist in your area, you're not going to have a boutique practice. So if you're in an area, you can look at your practice, and if 90% of your patients have insurance and you're PPO driven at this point, and that's basically the entire patient pool you have in your area, you can't all of a sudden decide you're going to pull the plug and not see any PPOs without losing a majority of your patients. Now, if you're very, very good with your verbal skills, and if you do it the right way, proactively set things up in a way that's not as detrimental, not as negative from a patient perception, if you get ahead of things, because insurance companies will send letters to patients alerting them to the fact that you're now out of network, that they will save money going to another practice. If you're not ahead of that, if you don't communicate to that patient prior to them getting that letter, it's catch up. So it's very difficult to do that. So understand, if you set up the situation and the transfer appropriately, if you do it exactly the way you're supposed to in the best way that you can, statistics have shown 35 to 40% of your patients will stay. And there aren't any statistics that indicate of those patients that stay, or excuse me, that leave, how many of them actually come back. And my feeling is that several of them will, because they'll go to that other dentist who is in PPO. and they do feel like they're on that assembly line, they do end up coming back, but there's no statistics on that. However, if you pull the plug without any communication, without having a relationship with your patient prior to, the statistics indicate it will be 10% or less that you retain. So you have to be careful when you pull the plug to do it the right way. And there are people who will help you through the process to make sure that you do it in a way that reduces the amount of impact, negative impact on your practice as you move forward. So a way of utilizing your position in the PPO world, especially with those new industries that come into your area, go to the HR department, introduce yourself, and tell them that you will welcome their patients. You're in network and you'll take very good care of their patients should they decide to come to you. You can do that also within the schools, or you can have that relationship with specialists or sleep doctors, or introduce yourself to the community and have them understand you're a good person. You're going to try to work with them and their patients to make sure that they have the best experience ever. So that HR department with that new patient base, new employees that come in, a lot of times the employees will ask, well, who's in network? And that person who they contact at the HR, if you have a relationship, they know you and they like you, they'll go, well, I know Dr. Smith on 12th Street takes our insurance. Great guy, met him. We had a conversation just the other day. I think it would be a good idea if you tried that. So this is a way, if you want to reach out and to increase the patient base for that particular group, a way to do that. You can also do that, by the way, if you have a participation plan in your practice. Say you have a company in your area that does not offer dental insurance for their employees. And of course, the employees always look for the benefits. So if you develop a relationship with that HR person in that new business and say, I understand you're not offering dental insurance to your employees. However, I just wanted you to know we have a participation plan in our practice where we offer this and such to your employees. Be happy to do that in lieu of your offering them insurance. And there again, that participation plan can help drive patients from that employer to your practice. So think a little bit about marketing. And that's something that's going to be a lot more effective than an email blast or a mail blast. When you develop that relationship with those people who can refer patients to your practice. If you have a cosmetic practice, I would develop a relationship with the cosmetic plastic surgeons in your area, your cosmeticians, your hairdressers. Ask if you can put flyers or promotional materials in their areas. If you're a aesthetic practice, they would probably be open to, if they want to do things with their face with plastic surgery, or with improving their appearance with new hairstyle, they might be open to treatment from a cosmetic dentist to increase their appearance and their perceptions of themselves. So introduce yourself around the community. Understand that if you're in network, it works because you're part of the network, or if you're out of network, just let them know who you are so that they start to develop that relationship. They see you and it's kind of like, this lady dentist, she's a really nice lady. I think I like her. I'll go to the practice. So ultimately, if you're in network or if you're out of network, does the overhead remain the same? Ultimately, most of the time, yes, but not necessarily. So the cost of business is actually the same in most cases, whether you're in network or out of network. Your rent or your mortgage is the same. Your electric bill is the same. Your water bill is the same. Your employees are typically the same, but we'll talk a little bit about the changes there. But ultimately, your overhead is going to remain fairly similar no matter who's in the chair. So if you have a PPO patient in the chair, or if you have a self-pay patient in the chair, the overhead is going to remain very close to the same. So it's important for you to know your hourly overhead rate. So calculate your total overhead and then look at your number of hours that you're open to see patients. Divide the amount of overhead by the amount of time that you have available, and that's your hourly overhead. So you can look at that to see how much you need to generate per hour to be able to pay all the bills, and how much you would like to generate beyond that overhead to be able to have profit to be able to take home. Ultimately, if you're in a PPO, you may need to see more patients to generate, you do have to see more patients to generate the same amount of money. So if you have a PPO patient in your chair that the write-off is 30%, and you have a other individual in the chair where they pay full fee, and your overhead is 60%, and you have a patient that you're writing off 30%, if your overhead's 60%, you have 40% to play with as far as being able to pay your bills. So if you have a fee for service, that full 40% can be used to pay for salary increases or whatever you want to pay for. If you have a PPO patient in your practice in that chair and you write off 30%, you have 10% in beyond the overhead. So you need to figure out how much that is in order to figure out, okay, how many patients do I have to have in the chair to generate the same amount of income? So in the example I used, if one you make 40% and the other one you make 10%, you have to have 4 times as many patients with that PPO to make the same amount of money at the end of the day. So just think about that. Is it worth it or is it not? That's something you have to think about yourself. So let's talk about monthly overhead cost. If it's $20,000, total hours of operation 144, that means the practice hourly overhead is $138.80 per hour. So you have to make that much an hour to be able to meet the overhead. PPO participation does not necessarily equal profit loss, but the practice will need to be lean and mean. You can't dawdle. Like I said, if you have to see 4 patients in order to replace that one fee-for-service patient, you need to understand it's going to take a lot more to be able to do that. Can the same group of the same size team see 4 patients rather than 1 patient? The answer is probably no. One of the things that you need to understand is with PPOs about optional services, and that's a whole different conversation. But many times when plans have a limitation that only pays for the least expensive alternative benefit, and the patient wants to have, say, implants, the least expensive alternative benefit to replace one of the teeth is a partial denture, but the patient wants an implant. Is there a difference in cost between partial denture and implant? Absolutely. And most plans will have a clause that allows for optional services. That's the upgrade. But like I said, that's a totally different lecture. It's going to take a while to be able to understand that. But there again, you need to know, this is just an example. You need to know the ins and outs of being in network to be able to utilize and maximize the many different ways of being able to maximize that legitimate reimbursement. So if you're in network, you need to understand all these ins and outs and be able to apply that to be able to maximize your legitimate reimbursement. So if you're working with a reduced fee, the overhead increase, if you need to see more patients to make up for the reduced fee, you need to factor that in. Does the team that you have available now, is it going to be able to increase that? And the example I use may be extreme. So maybe the write-off's 20%. But using the example, if the write-off's 20%, rather than having to see 4 patients to be able to generate the same amount of income, you only have to see 2 more. I say only. You have to see twice as many patients. So there again, you need to make the calculation. You need to know your write-off. You need to know your overhead in order to understand just exactly how much work you have to do to be able to make up for that difference. And I've seen practices who they had so many PPO patients. Well, they had so many patients in general. They had fee-for-service as well as regular insurance and regular PPO insurance. And actually, they were being flooded with PPO patients because they were one of the only providers in the area. And it was a fairly affluent area where the patients weren't so focused on the bottom line. They actually dropped their PPO patients. They remained active with their fee-for-service patients and with their regular insurance patients, not PPO. And they ended up with a third more income with 30% less patients. So they actually were able to restructure and reduce overhead as a result of the fact that the amount of supplies that they needed to buy, and the amount of team that they needed to maintain was actually reduced. So there again, good, bad, you have to decide whether or not you're in an area where this can work, and to be able to structure that and do that due diligence to be able to find that out. Question: have you ever negotiated your PPO fee schedule? So Adam, if you could help us with this. Some people don't even know you can, but this would be a great poll to be able to figure out what you guys have done, what you've attempted to do, and what how successful you've been. Have you ever negotiated your PPO fees? Yes, I do it regularly. I've done it before, never want to do it again, or no, I never have. Coffee went down the wrong way.
Right now, it's looking like the majority says no, I never have.
Oh, wow. Let's caveat. There are some insurance companies that will never negotiate, and Delta is one of them. So don't even try it. They, regardless of where you are, and in fact, Delta will reduce fees. They've done the calculations. They know when they reduce the fee that there is a percentage of dentists who will drop out, but they also know that there are enough dentists that will stay in network. Yeah, you do regularly. We have 28%, almost a third, and some never have. 14% have tried it and never want to do it again. So are there ways of negotiating your fees? Absolutely, especially if you know a little bit about the makeup of the area. So when you start to negotiate, don't negotiate on the global group of procedures that you provide, because they may give you a 2% increase, they may give you a 1% increase, and it's 90% of the increase is going to be on services that you never provide. The sweet spot is that most dental practices, 85 to 90% of their income is generated by about 10 to 15% of the services that they provide. And the average dental practice does about 90 procedures in their practice. Focus on the 10 most common procedures that you do and ask for increases on that. But before you do that, do a little bit of due diligence. Find out how many dentists in the area are actually in network. If there are very few, or if you're the only one in the area that take that PPO, the more exclusive you are. If you're the only dentist in the area, you're going to have a lot more clout than an area that has 50 dentists that accept the PPO, because there again, they're not going to look at you and go, okay, well, you won't be missed if you're gone, because we still have 50 or 44 that are still in network and are going to be able to do that. So they will not do that. But know your worth before you go in. Be courteous when you're asking for, and always negotiate with the provider relations people. Be nice, ask kindly, and be a little bit on the aggressive side, not to the point of being ugly, but know what you're worth and come in knowing that, but be willing to walk away. It's one of those things, if you know you're fairly important to the network in a particular area and they're not going to negotiate with you, it's like buying an automobile or a home. It's all part of negotiation. Be willing to walk away, and you'd be surprised they'll come back if they understand that you are going to drop out of network. When you drop that letter to them and says, okay, I'm sorry, we can't live with the fees, then we're going to come out of network. But the best time to negotiate is when you first come out of or go into network, or think about going into network, and they provide you with a fee schedule and go, no, this is not going to work for me. Thanks, but I decided I don't want to be in network. That is the best time to negotiate, especially if it's a new plan in an area and they're trying to build their network. And let's go ahead and expand it a little bit. There, in this world, there are groups or networks of dental plans. So there may be one group which connects, it's kind of like a spider web. They all connect to one another. So if you go in network with this one, you're going to be in network with another 6. They kind of all link off each other. The thing to know in this situation is that if you If you're in with all the seven, the one that has in network with six, there's seven of them all together. If you're in with all the seven and all of them have different fee schedules, all the seven will pay you on the lowest fee schedule of all the seven plans. But if you go in network with only the plan that has the highest fee schedule without going directly into the others, then you're part of the network, but they're obligated to pay you the fee schedule, the higher fee schedule that belongs to the one that you're in network with. So if you're thinking about going into a network with a group that are linked together, then compare fee schedules and go only in with a higher, and all over are obligated to the higher. Or if you're in network and say that network of seven, you're in with five and they're paying you in the lowest of the five, come out of all of them directly, but stay in with one. You still are in network, considered in network with all of them, but they pay at the fee schedule that's higher. So that's a way to kind of play the insurance game to be able to get the maximum benefit. And this is negotiate the lowest fee. So step to collecting 100%. Number one, accurate fee schedule in your software so that you can collect a time of service accurately. If you have a bad fee schedule and you miscalculate what the patient portion is it ever easy to collect from that patient after the fact, after they've walked out? It's very much harder. So make sure your fee schedules are in correctly and collect that amount at or before time of service. And I encourage you to maybe filter in a little bit of wiggle room, add 10% in the patient portion. You can always return that in the event that the insurance companies pay more than expected. Patients always love to get a refund check. So they hate to have to pay the extra. So maybe put a little wiggle room in there. Make sure you have financial arrangements prior to and have that service paid prior to or at the time of service. We should never be banks. Dentists will go to dental school to become dentists. Hygienists go to dental or hygiene school to become hygienists. We work to be able to provide that dental service. We are not bankers. Don't do that in your practice. Offer flexible payment options, but don't be the bank. And do not finance. If you finance in your own practice, you are considered by that state as a lending institution, and you have to meet all the requirements that the bank does when they loan on a car. So be aware, there's some very stringent restrictions that you need to adhere to be able to meet the requirements, and hire experts that are able to do the insurance portion of your practice effectively and be accurate. It makes the patient wonder if their bill is always wrong. You don't pay any attention to the money part. How much attention are you paying to the dentistry? Can you trust them to do the dental part right if the business part is not being done right? So these are ways of helping to collect 100% and retaining patients appropriately. So what is the ideal gross collections? 100% is not possible. In the United States, the average collection ratio is 91%. We recommend that you are at 98%. And this is the reason, well, let's go here first. 90% or 70% of dental practices are unknowingly leaving that 9% of collectible revenue on the table because they miss the billing and patient billing steps. So let's look what that would mean. Average dental practice revenue per year is about 1.5. Annual collection insurance benefits, if you 9% loss is 135,000, amortize that over 30 years, you have left on the table $4 million, $4.05 million. How about if you increase the 9% loss to 2% loss? How much would you have collected in addition of that $4 million? I did the calculation earlier, $3.69 million. Could you retire on that fairly easily? Yes, you could. So just by boosting from 91% collection to 98% collection, this is the difference. And is it possible to do that? It absolutely is. Insurance companies are counting on the fact that you don't do what you're supposed to. They make money on the fact that you leave that $4 million over that 30 years on the table. That's the reason why they can build these huge buildings. So there's a problem with claim follow-up. I understand people are busy in the practice. It's hard enough to submit a claim appropriately, but getting that claim back that was denied or they asked for other information, So be careful not to let those just fall between the cracks. So make sure that you use the correct CDT codes. Make sure that the attachments belong there are on there. Missing teeth or missing or incomplete patient information. Make sure that that claim it's filled out appropriately. Or if you're too busy, I understand the dental practice can get wild and crazy. Take the time to be able to follow up on those claims, because it will make that difference between 91% collection and 92% collection. Pull the insurance patient aging regularly, look at it, understand what it is, and make sure that you're working to increase your collections. Henry Schein Business Services, they have a field sales consultant that can help you move that 9% loss to more like 2%. This is the email to reach out to. They can connect you with the right area of Henry Schein and Henry Schein Solutions to make sure that those things are taken care of and that you don't leave those on the table. Closing thoughts. Always do, number one, what's best for your patients. And that's to help them to accept the care that they need. What's best for your practice, because if the practice doesn't exist, nobody is able to be paid to have a job to go to. What's best for the team? The team works together to make sure that we provide the care the patient needs to change their lives, and what's best for the dentist and the dental associates, because at the end of the day, when one benefits, we all benefit. We all rise together. Thank you. Delivering peace of mind is what eAssist does. That's the reason why they bring me in, the reason why we share the information. We want you to be able to have the practice of your dreams, to go home at night, to be able to relax and say, I did a good thing today with my patients and I didn't have to worry about that. So does it make sense to talk about how eAssist, would you like to have eAssist contact to help you how to move your collections from the 92% to the 98%? If you'd like, have a conversation. You don't have to hire them, but would you like to talk to somebody about how they can do that and how they go about making sure that that happens? Go ahead and if you would take a moment and answer that poll. I don't think we're going to show that, are we, Andy?
No, we're not.
Okay. So feel free to answer very, very candidly. Nobody's going to see this. It's just for eAssist to understand how effective I guess I was and how you feel that they can benefit. I guess at this point we answer any questions. Do we have any?
Yeah, we've got a couple here. When will the ADA declare the amalgam codes as a procedure that no longer is recommended or used by dental offices today?
Oh, unfortunately, probably never. The codes exist because they need to be able to describe the service that's provided. They aren't to determine whether or not they are considered standard of care. And that makes no sense. I understand. The codes will stay as long as there are dentists out there providing that service. And to be honest with you, there is so much information, negative and positive, about the use of amalgam that I don't think that's an argument that's ever going to be ended. And the codes aren't one to determine, as I said, standard of care. So those codes, I don't see them disappearing as long as there is not sufficient evidence to indicate that that is a bad thing to do. And like I said, that's not my judgment one way or the other. That's just the way the world is and the way the system works. But that's a great question.
What is going to be done about unnecessary delay of payment from insurance companies?
That's a good question. Is it Illinois that Blue Cross hasn't paid in a year and a half? Unfortunately, for example, the Illinois plan is a self-funded plan, which means the Illinois government has to fund the reimbursement for. I think Blue Cross Blue Shield is the administrator of, and before Blue Cross Blue Shield can send the checks to their doctors who are owed the money, rightfully owed the money, the government needs to send Blue Cross Blue Shield the money to cover those disbursements, and they haven't. So that's one instance where, unfortunately, the federal government self-funded plans are are mandated and covered by federal government. Federal government does not have any regulation to make them do that. Now, conventional dental plans that are governed by state insurance commissioners, they can take action against the insurance company for not doing that. So in terms of the reimbursement, forcing them to be able to do that, it depends on who's governing and what the issue is. But unfortunately, states can, the self-funded plans, and actually over 70% of plans that are that patients are covered by today are self-funded. So unfortunately, there's no control over that because the federal government does not mandate that those payments be made. There's no litigation possible with that. So our hands are kind of tied in situations like that. So it's going to take a law change. It's going to take the government to get involved for that to happen. And unfortunately, we understand that when the government gets involved, it's not as ideal as it might be in most cases. Trying to be politically correct here, sorry.
I think it's pertaining to one of the examples you shared. How do you find out the office in the PPO plan?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Can a in-network provider negotiate with Metlife?
Yes, Metlife is one that will. There again, if you'll reach out to me, I have an article that I've read or written that will go through the steps of how that's done, and I'll give you a hack as well. Henry Schein has Unitas that will negotiate on your behalf, and in fact, if you talk to your field sales representative, they can connect you with a website where you can actually list the plans that you're in network with now, and the amount that you collect from them, and they're going to give you a fairly accurate estimate of, if they negotiate fees, how much you can expect the income to increase as a result of negotiating those. That's Unitas. I think they're associated with Henry Schein, but talk to your field sales representative, and they can connect you with Unitas and have that done.
Yes, that is Unitas Dental.
Okay.
Can insurance plans choose to pay the patient directly even after patients have signed over benefits on the insurance form?
Yeah, Delta Dental actually does that routinely. A lot of other insurance companies can have plans that actually make it so that the payment goes to the patient. So when you go in network or when you verify benefits, that's a question to ask. Will the assignment of benefits mandate that it be paid to the dental office? There are a couple of states, I think, that Delta, the state actually intervened with the state controlled plans where Delta can't do that anymore. Federally funded plans, I think it always goes to the patient. But there again, you need to know the state you're in and understand that it can vary from carrier to carrier.
Question about negotiating with Delta. You said no, correct?
Never. I've never seen a Delta negotiate. And in fact, Delta, the only thing they're going to do is reduce the fees over the whole group. In fact, they have done that now with the fifth state. They started with California. They reduced the reimbursement in California 15%. And there have been 4 other Deltas that have reduced the fees as well. And I can tell you what some of the reason for that is. It's not because Delta's the big bad wolf or the big mean. If you're submitting claims to the insurance carrier and you're only submitting the PPO fee, they use the fee submitted to calculate what the fee average is for the particular area. So if you're only submitting the PPO fee because you don't want to do the write-offs, and I understand it's hard to do the write-offs, but if you're only submitting the PPO fee and say 40% of the dentists in the area only submit the PPO fee, which is 100% of the fee schedule, Delta's going to look at that and go, 40% of our doctors we pay 100% on. So why should we pay 100%? We can reduce our fees because so many of them get paid 100%. So always submit your full fees on the claims to the insurance or to insurance companies. So because they use those submitted fees to develop their UCRs. And if you want a method of or a fee schedule for your area, there again, you can talk to your Henry Schein field sales representative as well. They can probably provide you with what's considered a UCR fee schedule in your particular area, and I encourage you to go off that to develop your fees. I chased a rabbit again, Adam, sorry.
No problem. What about Delta Dental Premier?
Premier, as far as negotiating fees, no. What they've been doing is systematically eliminating Premier. For example, and I'll use California example because, things start in California and they roll across the rest of the country. California made it so that if you changed anything about your practice, so if dentist was premier at a facility in San Francisco and they moved to another facility 15 miles away, they would have to update their status, their participation with Delta, and Delta would no longer honor the premier status. With a new graduate that graduated from dental school, they will not allow them to come in premier anymore. They can only be PPO. So they're trying to eliminate that. And to be honest with you, many of the Deltas are eliminating their premier products altogether because they can't sell them. They're so expensive that employers can't buy them. Employers are looking to save money. So that's one of the ways they can to reduce the amount that they're going to have to pay for that benefit for their patients. So Premier will not negotiate at all either, and don't be surprised if it becomes non-existent anymore.
I have an office I work with that presents in-network fees to patients, even if they're not in network. Isn't that odd?
If you're not in network, you can vary your fees on an individual basis. So if you have a patient, so for example, you have a patient with 6 lower anterior teeth and they have good hygiene, and Profi takes maybe 25 minutes. Can you charge less for that patient? Yes. But you can't charge less for a group of patients or a group of individuals because it's considered discrimination. It would be odd to reduce your fee when you can actually collect more, but maybe that's in order to stay competitive with the other dentists in the area who are in network. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't get in that dentist's head, but that is odd.
Does eAssist take care of the whole insurance claim process from start to finish?
It does. Even to the point of they vet the claim before it's submitted. So their success consultant, that's the individual that you'll be working with directly with eAssist, will review the claims, make sure that all the information is correct, accurate, and will add it or request supportive information so that when that claim is sent, it's complete and there's no delays or requests for additional information. And there's very seldom, unless the information is incorrect in the software with the dental practice, because they actually tie into the software in the dental practice. It's as if that person were your insurance coordinator in your dental practice, but they have all the information they need to make sure that the claim that is submitted is complete. So they do everything from soup to nuts. They'll actually post from the EOB into your practice, and they can prepare the deposit slips.
If there's a master list of insurance companies and provider service contact phone numbers?
Who are they looking for phone numbers for?
Provider services.
It would be on the insurance, more than likely the website. I don't have one because the insurance plans change fairly rapidly, and so do the numbers. So I would do provider relations, and they can actually transfer you. So if you have your regular line that you call in to find out the status of a claim, I would ask them to transfer you and to give you the number for the provider relations area. And they can do that. They'll have that to be able to refer. That would be who we would contact to negotiate fees and to have that conversation regarding the accreditation or the participation agreement with the doctors.
2 more questions.
Okay.
First one, do you or does eAssist sell UCR fee schedule?
The UCR fee schedules, I don't think anybody sells them. Sometimes that's available online. Your patients are always privy to that as well. Dental offices can't get them directly from the insurance company, but if you have a patient who is employed by, say, I don't know, some steel company, call HR, and the HR will be able to forward you a fee schedule for that plan. The patient can get a copy of it as well. All they need to request. So you might arm the patient with the information they need to make that request. But they have a right to be able to have the fee schedule information. And like I said, the HR department, the employer will have that information that they will probably share with you. Sometimes it's available online. And if you want to be sneaky, you can pretend that, I shouldn't say this out loud, pretend that you're considering becoming in-network. Would they please provide you a fee schedule? And more than likely they will do that.
All right. And lastly, when eAssist does insurance verifications, do they just get a fax back of general codes, or can we ask them to verify specific codes?
They can, you'll have an individual that you work with that does that. So you'll be able to specify the specific information that you need. If it is very, very far beyond what is normal and they're gonna have to spend more time, there may be an increased fee for that, but it'll be well worth your time. So like I said, can it be customized? Yes. It's not just a fax back. No. You can be very specific about the information that you need and be able to work out something with that individual who's going to be doing it for you. And like I said, there'll be a dedicated individual who does that. So you have that relationship with them. And there again, they go into your software. They're going to go ahead and look at who you're going to have coming in. And I believe it's 2 days before that they go through the list and they're able to provide that verification of benefits. That's an add-on. That's not a standalone. I think you have to be a eAssist customer with the basic service, the billing service, before they'll do the verification. So that's an add-on to the basic service. These are great questions.
Well, we've got, okay, one more additional one came in. Does eAssist put in dental benefit information for Curve Dental?
Yes. They will actually load the fee schedules. And there again, if you want fee schedules, there is a network of, I think there's 1,400 employees now. And between all of them, I would bet you they have every single fee schedule for every single insurance. And can they load that into your software? Yes, they can.
All right. Well, I think we got through all of them. So Dr. Shelburne, thank you as always.
Oh,
Great
my pleasure, Adam. Yeah, all great questions. Great group.
If anyone does have additional questions, please feel free to email us at webinars@henryschein.com. We did record this presentation, so you'll get that within 1 week of tonight. And then if you want to see any future Henry Schein webinars, visit henryscheindental.com/webinars for our upcoming schedule. All right. That's all I got. Thanks again, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.